The big news story of this week is this. The world has been told that we as a united nation realize the danger that confronts us, and that to meet that danger, our democracy has gone into action. From the bureaus of propaganda of the Axis powers came the confident prophecy that the conquest of our country would be an inside job. The determination of America must not and will not be obstructed by war profiteering. It must not be obstructed by unnecessary strikes of workers, by short-sighted management. Or by the third danger, deliberate sabotage. For unless we win, there will be no freedom for either management or labor. The British people and their Grecian allies need ships. They need tanks and guns and ammunition and supplies of all kinds. From America they will get tanks and guns and ammunition and supplies of all kinds. Never in all our history, never in all our history of Americans faced a job so well worthwhile. May it be said of us in the days to come that our children and our children's children rise up and call us blessed.
The question which I find most constantly on the lips of my American friends is, when will Hitler invade Britain? I dare say Hitler has been asking it himself, and therefore you will hardly expect me to answer it. But if you ask me, can such an invasion succeed, then both my head and my heart join to tell you with all the conviction born of my knowledge of how the British people feel and of being a member of the War Cabinet since its formation, that the answer is a confident and an unhesitating no.
This agreement between the United States and Denmark relating to the defense of Greenland is by now known to my countrymen in Denmark. Sitting by their radios under the blackout that covers Denmark now, they will have heard the President's statement. And they will have felt grateful and encouraged when the President expressed his hope for a speedy liberation of Denmark. And they heard the President's assurance that Greenland will remain Danish. In this world of broken treaties, they know the word of the American people and their government can be trusted.
The United States is today, as it has always been, the best investment in the world. This is an opportunity for each citizen to buy a share in America.
The Office of Price Administration and Civilian Supply is a new agency created by the President to control prices and to stimulate the supply and distribution of goods to consumers. We intend to move in now on speculators, profiteers, sharpshooters, and chiselers.
Your call, please. Army Flash, thank you.
Army Flash.
Army, go ahead, please.
71 Irene 45 Blue 35 65.
Take off now, vector 10 degrees, Angels.
75 Glen 17.
fleet of bird or the rescue of unfortunate air crews. Note they lose no time in getting keen-eyed men seize for a glimpse of floating objects. The gunner's turret is ready to spit destruction at any enemy machine which might try to interfere. Stressed comrades speeds alongside, tosses them a line. Icy winds and water are soon dissipated aft of liquid refreshment. The mercy work of these great little boats is well known to the Germans, but the settling day is coming. The ship that will sail the seas no more is the Port Bowen of New Zealand, now lying wrecked on the shores of the country of her origin. Efforts to refloat her failed, but despite that, the sorry 8,000-ton vessel will do one last good deed. Metals from her are being salvaged and used for making more armaments for New Zealand's war effort. Newsreel cameramen, good soldiers, listen. This bridge was blown up while our operator, Leslie Murray, was shooting the scene for you. He was eager for a good picture, but this was all he got of it, because he too was shattered by the explosion. Here he is leaving hospital after 5 months of patching up. His injuries were critical and numerous, but despite a permanent limp caused by severe bone fractures and some scars as mementos, he is still cheery. On his official trip to Narvik, his ship was attacked on several occasions by enemy bombers. During these actions, he kept his camera turning. Newsreel colleagues with him did the same. Whilst this was happening, another of Universal's men, Frank Purnell, was on an escorting warship. Dive bombers attacked and he received 9 shrapnel wounds, some serious. Yet another, Ronnie Noble, was on the job at Dunkirk. In the attack off Narvik, Murray escaped injuries, although his gear was damaged. So when you see thrilling news pictures, what about a thought to those soldiers whose only weapon is a heavy camera? They all take risks like Murray, whose immediate itch is to get back to work. So now a little hand, please, for men of the newsreels.
In my judgment, our safety and security require that in accordance with the declared policy of the legislative and executive branches of the government, aid must be supplied without hesitation to Great Britain and those other countries that are resisting the sweep of the General Confederation. This policy means, in practical application, that such aid must reach its destination in the shortest of time and in maximum quantity. So, ways must be found to do this. I have absolute faith in the ultimate triumph of the principles of humanity translated into law and order, by which freedom and justice and security will again prevail.
Required for the Army and Navy.
Can't you put out that light on?
Very, very large, but that's the best that we can do at this time.
Then it is.
We are now about to pay for the greatest service of all, the safety and protection of our country. How much does it mean to the American taxpayer to have a Navy guarding American shores? How much does it mean to him to have an adequate supply of airplanes and other weapons of national defense? How much is it worth to be a free man living in a free land? If we remember always the services we are receiving as individuals, the new taxes will seem a small price to pay. The American people are ready to pay that price.
Yeah. So
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
And to the country for which it stands. One nation. Indivisible. With liberty and justice for all.
I am not sure that I am worthy of this splendid citation, but I wish to say also that I thank you from the depths of my heart.
Debate rages over our foreign policy, present and future. That is as it should be in a democracy. No one can foretell what decisions may emerge from that debate, but in this job for your boys, for your men everywhere, there can be no debate and there can be no argument. Only one thing can we foretell. Come what may, America stands behind its men in uniform. America stands united. I thank you.
Hey, look. They're all buying them. That's yours, huh? Hey, there's another one. Lucky.
They're certainly worth buying, boys.
So they got any left?
Oh, sure.
Okay. 1 defense bond and 3 10-cent defense stamps.
Hey, Abbott, what are the stamps for?
For defense.
You mean you put the stamps on defense? And to whom do you mail defense?
No,
your name, please.
But Abbott.
Costello's mine.
You don't understand. These stamps are for defense. You see, when you buy a defense stamp or a defense bond, you're saving your money by lending it to Uncle Sam. See, Uncle Sam needs that money to build ships and planes, tanks.
And what?
Tanks.
You're welcome.
For what?
For giving me such wonderful advice.
Oh, sure.
I want to help my Uncle Sam.
Well, you should.
And I also want to help myself.
Well,
therefore, I'm going to buy plenty of those defense bonds and stamps.
That's the boy.
And you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to help your Uncle Sam, I hope you do the same. Sure. Thank you.
The greatest need among our women today is for a total national defense program. And what can the women do? Well, first they can sell stamps and bonds to the government in order to make a national defense program possible. Then we can train ambulance drivers. We'll need many of them in case of war. Nursing, particularly first aid. Aviation, for ground work and looking for hostile planes. Munition workers, in order to take the places of our men, if it's necessary for them to go to war. Recreation. A recreational hostess in our camps can do very fine work for our boys. And yes, I believe that the women of this country would shoulder a gun and go to war, if necessary, to prevent Nazi domination in these United States.
What we want to do is to educate
the public to protect themselves in the event of a foreign attack, to train the necessary number of civilians in the work of air raid wardens and an auxiliary fire force to meet any emergency.
und Benitos Mussolinis zu gehören.
Agrotechnique plus social.
蘇大使以下ソビエト連邦側
Hitler has miscalculated. Ours is a nation of a moral and political unity and strength unknown in the past. It is firmly organized, devoted to its leaders, and has utmost confidence in its armed forces, which are ready for any test. Hitler's attack against my country will be smashed.
Will you bring them up here, please? Top here in front, you wanted to, don't you? Yeah, thanks. We expect to collect 20 million pounds of old aluminum utensils throughout the country. 10,000 pounds are needed for every fighter plane. Just think of it. We will collect enough aluminum for 2,000 fighter planes. I appeal to all to help in this very important mission of collecting old aluminum for our government.
Pay a bond.
Here's your stamp.
All right. What a light. I have one son who is in the Navy. The rest of the family are all buying defense stamps. I hope every other American family will do the same.
Pennsylvanians must not forget that Tuesday, July the 1st this year is the second registration day for selective service. I have before me the proclamation issued by the President of the United States designating the day, and I have the proclamation which I have issued calling on the 422 local selective service boards of this Commonwealth to perform this registration, and at the same time ordering the closing on that day between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time of all liquor establishments throughout the Commonwealth. As Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I call upon all of our people, in the traditional manner of their forefathers, to arise patriotically to this call and make second registration day a real American success. I call upon all employers to give their workers who must register time off to accomplish this duty. I call upon all concerned to register early in order to avoid a last-minute delay. I call upon all of our people to display the flag from their homes. This is a call from our nation and state and our national defense. Pennsylvanians never fail.
Citizens of Philadelphia, international events make it necessary to call attention to preparedness against any form of attack that common events may unhappily bring to pass, and I have accordingly proclaimed Philadelphia Defense Week, November the 30th to December the 6th, as a time during which citizens may learn how to prepare themselves. Director Gregoire, I name you General Chairman of Philadelphia.
Assembled Congress hears the President and his promise to all people fighting aggression.
We shall send you in ever-increasing numbers, ships, planes, tanks, guns. That is our purpose and our pledge.
And the President's words meant action as billions of dollars worth of goods start to flow to embattled England and other allied countries. America became the arsenal of democracy, supplying supplies from the United States pouring into Britain to help crush the madman of Europe. We're in the war now, but all through 1941, we were in there on the side of democracy. Unprecedented in the annals of the United States was the inauguration of Mr. Roosevelt to his third term. He took office to face the most critical period of our nation's history. During the year up to the day we entered the war, sabotage and strikes were rife in the country. Some acts were proven deliberate, some were not, but thousands upon thousands of man-hours were lost. Under international law, the United States seized Axis ships in our ports. This was to prevent the sabotage of these vessels. It took the war to unite our people, to unite capital and labor. Strikes flared again and again throughout the nation, accompanied by violence and bloodshed.
But now scenes such as these are a thing of the past, for this nation will make a supreme effort to back our armed forces with the weapons they need. This is everybody's war. We're all in this war for victory. Mystery of the year is the reason back of Rudolf Hess's flight from Germany to Scotland. Did he feel the Axis couldn't win? Did he come with peace messages? All this won't be known until the war is over. The British checkmated Hitler in Syria when they moved in before the Nazis could take over, thus cutting off a potential source of oil for the German panzer divisions. Iran, too, is the same story. The British, with this coup, control almost all of the Middle East oil supply. This is the oil that Hitler badly needed but lost. And with Russia in the way, he can't win the Caucasian oil fields. America acts to protect the vital North Atlantic sea lanes. American guns and troops in Iceland to ward off Nazi attacks and to guard the strategic shipping lanes over which Lend-Lease supplies are pouring to our allies. Uncle Sam takes the initiative. An American naval casualty in the Battle of the Atlantic. The destroyer Kearney, on convoy duty off Iceland, was hit by a Nazi torpedo. Its rugged construction saved the new type ship, but American sailors lost their lives. When Hitler's hordes smashed into Russia in June, many prophesied the quick defeat of the Russian armies, but not the Russians. Their heroic defense and their savage counter-blows at the end of the year provides new hope for ultimate victory over the Axis powers. Germans retreating in Russia. Good news in 1941. British imperial forces swept through Libya once, but were forced back after smashing Italian armies there. Then came the heroic defense of Tobruk against overwhelming odds. Empire forces held out for 9 months at Tobruk, waiting the time, not far distant, when Britain's second offensive begins. Equipped with American-made tanks and planes, British troops are waging a campaign of annihilation to wipe out the Axis armies. Victory here will bolster the entire Allied position in the Middle East and may thwart any Axis thrust across Spain and down the coast of Africa. Time is of essence in Africa. The greatest double cross in history. Jap envoys talk peace in Washington. Jap planes, without warning, bring war to America. Our great Pacific outpost in the Hawaiian Islands is ruthlessly bombed as Japan's perfidious declaration of war. Death and destruction unleashed on a nation at peace. On that fateful Sunday morning when this country was extending a friendly hand of conciliation and peace. The treacherous attacks brought death to almost 3,000 American soldiers, sailors, and civilians. Our loss in warships and planes was high, but overnight this nation was united in an all-out determination to avenge the hideous assault on American lives and property. Our battle cry is, remember Pearl Harbor. The President's signature speeds our total defense, energies, and resources to all-out victory. The evil mastermind of aggression is forced into the open. The world's #1 arsonist and killer declares the war on the United States, and his stooges applaud. The vociferous junior partner in crime follows suit. Now practically the entire world is joined in a horrible war. The President bought the first defense bond and set an early example for us all. Let's get behind our Army, our Navy, and our President.
fellow Americans, I ask you to demonstrate again your faith in America by joining me in investing in the new defense savings bonds and stamps. And I know that you will help.
The conquering Lion of Judah became that in fact, as Haile Selassie, with the help of the British, regained his throne in Ethiopia. Thus died the empire hopes of Hitler's stooge, Il Duce.
And himself flew the craft some considerable distance. Gain yet another item to store with the already full measure of... From in the air to on the air. Over to white. We hope the American Sea Patrol spotted the white. I think everyone in the country was relieved to hear of the Prime Minister's safe return. Not least, perhaps, Mr. Churchill has accomplished Herculean tasks, yet there is so much more to be done. But the captain stands at the helm again. From the humblest fans to, well, Capital of Yugoslavia, and Churchill, who shook hands with the Scottish team first. The captains opened the proceedings, and naturally, as devoted wife, the game took second place, and Mr. Churchill became the first consideration. The crowd cheered the news while keeping an eye on the play. Mrs. Churchill left the ground. Her joy at the news was registered in her happy smile. But the important thing about this match is not which side wins or by how many goals. The distinguished watchers of the game give the clue. The great money goes to Mrs. Churchill's aid. The first goal was scored by Hagan for England. Here's the second, scored by Lawton.
on, my brethren, shake your feathers and get together and sing.
Specifically, we don't know how much used rubber there is in your cellar, your barn, your stockroom, your garage, your attic. The only way to find out is to get the used rubber in where it can stand up and be counted. And that is precisely what we propose to do. So we are setting aside the 2 weeks period ending on June 30th. We have set this period aside to get the old rubber in. We have asked the filling station operators, the thousands upon thousands of citizens who operate gas stations and garages from one end of the country to the other, to help. And they have generously and patriotically agreed to help. They and the oil companies which serve them. They have agreed to take the old rubber in and to pay for it at the standard rate of a penny a pound. Once the rubber is in, we will know what our supplies of used rubber are, and we will make our plans accordingly. Of one thing you can be sure. We are going to see to it that there's enough rubber to build the planes to bomb Tokyo and Berlin. Enough rubber to build the tanks to crush the enemy wherever we may find him. Enough rubber to win this war.
An action in particular, yet all part of the hard and costly toil, which is the ever to fight the Mediterranean. You will remember how 2 large convoys were recently involved. One going east from Gibraltar, where sky and sea to sea attackers sought their victims. Every morning engaged in the task of getting supplies through. The life of any ship may hang on the trigger finger of one man. Accounted for many enemy planes. Here's one shot out of the sky to end up in a cloud of smoke as the tanks burst. To the west, the attacks on the Alexandria convoy were being met. Tremendous efforts to stop it, as they were bound to be. But the men set about their enterprise, and as the bombers came over in waves, a terrific screen of fire as bombs fell all about them. As the convoy held off by the Navy, the RAF, and the Fleet Air Arm. The scene as the vessels escorting the convoy from lay a smoke screen around the merchantman as protection from the main Italian battle fleet which had ventured out. What happened to Mussolini's warships at the hands of the British and American airmen is a long story. But they knocked them about so badly that what were left drove back to Taranto. Now every available Axis plane was thrown into the battle. Here comes an Italian torpedo carrier right overhead, losing height as tracer bullets rip into it. That burst of gunfire and dive into the water. Once again, the sky. After long days of almost continuous fighting, the battle of the convoys begins to burn itself out. Men who have had little or no time to think of food snatch at it. The British Isles and Malta both live on the precious contents of the accompaniment of a lot of hearty cheering. A river steamer brings the King and Queen, during their comprehensive tour of Scotland, to one of the many industrial centres north of the border. Men of the Royal Navy, Merchant Service, and the shipyard workers are among those to be specially honored. At Paisley, Her Majesty is greatly interested in what is being done at a day nursery for the children of war workers. Edinburgh and Glasgow give their Majesties a great reception, and in the latter city, firemen and women of the National Fire Service Training Centre demonstrate their skill in the use of all types of appliances. Now to Blantyre, Lanarkshire, where at the Miners' Welfare Centre, the Queen is invited to test her aim on the bowling green. Her Majesty sends down a wood that would please many a professional. These scenes and many others like them illustrate the warm welcome which Scotland extends to the royal visitors. The largest convoy ever taken to Russia is feeling its way through the danger belt north of Scandinavia. This is the mine layers, packs of torpedo droppers and submarines. This is the steel-spattered hell through which British, American, and Russian freighters went. Those gallant merchantmen didn't get through the attack without loss. A pillar of black smoke hangs motionless to each other and were lashed together while traveling at speed. The mighty wind blowing and the enemy overhead, it was a superhuman job. Air fleet, but none ventured out to attack on the homeward journey. Danger there was in plenty. Look up there.
The cost of the present war is creating for the American people a financial burden unequaled in all our history. This cost can only be met in two ways, either by taxation or borrowing, one or both. The extent that we meet this burden by taxation, to that extent will the burden of borrowing be lessened. I'm satisfied the American people will carry this burden cheerfully because they realize that our liberties are at stake. That the issue in this campaign is either liberty or slavery. And I am satisfied our people will die before they will become slaves.
The 1942 revenue bill will impose the heaviest tax burden ever placed upon the American citizens. Each of you will find your tax bill substantially increased. Many of those who have been paying income taxes in the past will find their bills more than doubled, and by reason of lowered exemptions and credits, many more will be paying taxes who have not yet afore paid. In addition to the regular income tax, the victory tax will take 5% of the income of each individual above $624. Corporation rates have also been substantially increased on both normal and excess profits. We believe these rates are adequate to prevent anyone realizing undue profits out of the war effort.
Private Buddy Barton, the first officer to join the American Army. Ceremoniously, he was elevated to the rank of Sergeant, first class, as a reward for his offensive action against the camp tonight. He headed a couple of dashing witches, Buddy, to leave fast. You don't need to leave fast, Buddy. You extend it, if you can. Rosie says, I've got a date to the GPO. Better catch the last post. What a town, what a town. Or is hell. Buddy, what are you doing there?
Few people realize the extent of the work that goes on behind the lines to ensure that every tank passing into the 8th Army is mechanically sound in every way. Kind of desert service stations are set up to overhaul and check every tank before it goes into battle. The wireless section tests all radio equipment. A breakdown in communications might have serious results. This and the 101 other overhaul jobs will be the responsibility of a new corps, the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, which comes into being as we show you these pictures. Greasing is as important on an ironclad as a limousine, and tanks count for more than saloons in these days. In the gunnery section, they test the recoil action of the heavy gun. When the checkover is finally complete, the tank is put on the test run, a mile of loose sand nearly 2 feet deep. Through this they drive, sending great clouds of dust swirling from their tracks. This closely resembles the conditions under which tanks fight. Get a load of this and cough. If after all this the examiner is not satisfied, they send it back for another complete overhaul. But it's seldom the chummy doesn't get his little piece of chalk out and mark it okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're on location with Miss Loretta Young, where she's making her latest picture based on the war in China. As soon as she finishes the scene, she has something she wants to say to you. Cut!
All right, Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
Miss Young?
Yes?
May we have a moment of your time?
Yes, you certainly may. Because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask each one of you here to give me a moment of her time. I say her because I want particularly to speak to you women in this theater. Women at War Week begins November the 22nd. It is a week set aside to honor the women of our country and the countries of our allies who are engaged in war work. But more important than that, it is a period of enlistment for those women who feel they are not yet doing enough. Now, of course, none of us, no matter how much we are doing, feel that we're doing enough. How can we? When we know what the women of China and England and Russia and Holland and Norway and Poland are doing and have done. Well, they've seen their husbands go away and never come back. They've seen their homes bombed by the enemy. In some countries, they've seen their children dying slowly from starvation. Oh, thank God we haven't seen some of those things yet. And please God, we never shall. We have a right to be proud of the part that American women are playing in this war. We found that the hand that rocks the cradle can build bombers, make ammunition, can turn every kitchen into a salvage station for vitally needed war materials. Yes, and can even help finance this war, too. Women at War Week reminds us that we need no longer sit and wait. There is a job for each and every one of us, and it is our duty to find that job. Because every job we do is a pledge that our homes will not be destroyed. And every bond we buy is a promise that our children will not grow up in bondage. We've seen half the world ravaged by a ruthless, brutal force. Women at War Week is a call to arms of all American women to resolve that it won't happen here in the United States or anywhere else in the world ever again. Thank you, ladies.
More than 23 million people are already buying war bonds out of your regular pay every payday. But there are other millions, millions of private investors, corporations, custodians of trust funds, estates who have idle money in the bank. That money has got to go to work for our country. We've got to make our dollars fighting dollars by investing them in government bonds. And so this new victory loan gives us a chance to make those dollars fight.
Sometimes I wish that that great master of intuition, the Nazi leader, could have been present in spirit at the Quebec conference. I am thoroughly glad that he was not there in person. If he and his generals had known our plans, they would have realized that discretion is still the better part of valor, and that surrender would pay them better now than later. We have been forced to call out what we in the United States would call the sheriff's posse, to break up the gang, in order that gangsterism may be eliminated in the community of nations. We are making sure, absolutely irrevocably sure, that this time the lesson is driven home to them once and for all. Yes, we are going to be rid of outlaws this time.
Die Besprechungen verliefen im Geiste der im Weltkrieg begründeten Waffenbrüderschaft und Freundschaft.